It is 7 June. Does anybody know what yesterday was? June 6th. That's right, the day before 7 June. Some other people said D-Day, and they are correct. It was the day that the Allied forces went over and took on the axis of evil, the Germany, Japan, and Italy. Thank you, and specifically against the German forces in Normandy and that area, and how many brave people gave their lives. Go look at the graveyard over in France at that spot, and the crosses go on and on and on of people that gave their lives. Jewish people as well, they're honored. The people were honored by their faith. Some of them we don't even know who they were. They were lost to time. But that was D-Day, and it was also my brother's birthday, so it's always easy to remember that. Now he is 65 years old, which means I'm getting old because I'm a couple years behind him. So there you go. The world continues on. Let's see here. Anyway, I'm Charlie Garrett. This is a CG Prophecy Report. NATO 3.0. Oh no. That and a lot of other things to go over on today's report. Before we get into the report itself, I have just one thing I'd like to tell you about. Is my friend Mike has done a website, and he's kept it up, and he doesn't just keep it up, he keeps adding to it. It's called the tribulationsurvival.com. Tribulation and then survival.com, all one word. And if you go there, he's got all kinds of stuff. If you're left behind, he's got all kinds of stuff for evangelizing gay people. He's got all kinds of stuff. He's just got tons of stuff on there. And he added in the audio Bible, the Word of Promise, this past week. You can listen to it right on YouTube now. You can listen to it on Rumble. And he's got other audio Bible versions. He's got so much stuff that if you go to that site and you just bookmark it and you need to just check something out, he's got all kinds of information there. And when he put on the audio Bible, I thought, I need to tell people about this again because I love the audio Bible. I don't drive anywhere, ever, without it running in my car. And if I forget my digital Bible, which I keep in my pocket, which hooks up to this thing called Bluetooth on my dashboard, I feel lonely as I'm driving on the road because I don't have anything. I'm not going to turn on the local radio station because I know what'll happen. As soon as I start listening to the oldies again, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to listen to the Bible anymore. I'm going to start singing these songs from when I was in high school or something. And I don't want to do that. I want to keep the Bible going and be refreshed in the Word of God. And so he's got that on there. It's a great resource. Check it out. Download those things. You can get a zip file from him. He's got everything you need and things to help other people that may not know Jesus, that you want them to know Jesus. Go there. I think you'll enjoy it. We got some news from Israel here, from the Times of Israel. Israel gets first new KC-46 refueling planes, greatly boosting long-range capabilities. I lived in Tokyo, Japan for years, 6 years, almost to the day. I worked at Yokota Air Base. I was actually living out in the mountains, and then we would travel to the base to work. And eventually we moved onto the base, something I wish I never did because I loved where we lived out in Haijima, and we were close to the train. We could go up into the mountains very easily, but we did move on to the base because we adopted a couple of little children, and we wanted them to, not have to live. It's really cold in Japanese houses, really cold, and all you get is these little oil-burning heaters. They knock over easily. Kid knocks it over, and there goes the house and you inside of it. So anyway, when we were at Yokota Air Base, they had these KC-135 planes, and they were the dirtiest planes in the world. Did you ever see them taking off? They're filthy. They would take off, and they would just have lines of pollution coming out of their engines. They got all that weight of gas, and they've got these, very strong engines that needed to get them up and keep them going. They were so dirty, though, and I think that they took care of that problem with the newer model. So they fly clean, like when a jet takes off, you don't see smoke everywhere. But it was like following a bad diesel truck. If you've ever done that and you hit the gas and there's diesel smoke all over you, that's what they were like. So I remember well the refueling planes from my time in Japan. But they got the refueling plane from the U.S. It's called the Gideon. It's the first of 6 of these KC-46 aircraft purchased by the Defense Ministry. in a move that will significantly boost Israel's long-range strike capability. The multi-role aircraft makes mid-air refueling possible for fighter jets and other aircraft, but can also be used for military transport. The IAF is largely relied on using the USAF refuelers to enable jets to carry out strikes in Iran, some 1,200 miles from Israel and far outside the normal flight range of Israeli jets. The KC-47 can carry up to 200,000 pounds of fuel, a 15% increase over the previous model. It is also more efficient than the 707, which will increase the flight time, allowing for longer refueling missions. The arrival of the new plane significantly strengthens the Air Force's superiority in the ongoing multi-front war and in long-range operations, the IDF said, noting that the aircraft also provided advanced transport and multi-mission capabilities. Really fun stuff there. From All Israel, Israeli startup converts AI data center heat into electricity. I've always wondered if this could be done. I just thought about it. What happens to all that heat that's being expelled? And is it just wasted, or is there a way of recapturing it? I don't know anything, so I never would have been a person on this development team, but they figured out how to do it. Nanotherma has developed a technology that can harvest waste heat from AI data centers and convert it back into electricity. That's amazing. Addressing one of the fastest growing challenges facing the AI industry, soaring energy consumption. The company recently won a competition sponsored by Access, the Shapir Group Innovation Division, which connects startups with established companies in technology, construction, and innovation to develop scalable solutions for major industrial challenges. As AI systems expand worldwide, data centers consume enormous amounts of electricity while producing large quantities of heat that require additional energy-intensive cooling systems. The excess heat is typically lost, even as electricity and cooling costs continue to rise sharply. Nimrod Gazit, his name is Nimrod, CEO and co-founder of Nanotherma, said in the age of AI, energy is becoming the limiting factor. If we want AI to keep growing, we must stop wasting the energy that we've already paid for. Nanotherma's solution involves placing thin, lightweight modular panels into existing cooling and thermal management systems inside data centers. The panels are designed to fit into exhaust ports where heat is vented. The system works by channeling heat between hot and cold zones within the infrastructure, using temperature differences to generate electrical currents that can be fed back into the grid. Unlike many cooling technologies, the system operates without liquids, avoiding evaporation that can damage sensitive metal components. It also contains no moving parts, eliminating the need for additional electricity to keep the system operating. Engineering experts say the technology could eventually be integrated into a wide range of industries beyond data centers, including desalination plants, factories, ships, and large vehicles, potentially helping reduce energy consumption costs and space requirements. As part of the award, Nanotherma will gain access to ongoing projects through companies connected to Access. The startup's expertise in nanomaterials, semiconductor manufacturing processes, and modular system design has already attracted interest from major corporations and governments worldwide. Okay, from the Jewish Chronicle. Israel will not live to see another 15 years, says Iran's supreme leader. Okay, they've said that for the past 50 or 60 years, and they continue to exist, and they will continue to exist. Okay, we got some news from Christianity here. From Chick. Hell is outlawed in the United Kingdom. Did you know that? It's good news, right? In Colchester, England, a church's street outreach has become the subject of formal enforcement action under a community protection notice. The Bread of Life Community Church in Essex, which has conducted public preaching and charitable outreach for years, has been warned that its messaging is liable to cause harassment, alarm, and distress. The group first came under fire for using speakers in public spaces, something done by many outdoor speakers and preachers. But now authorities are questioning the content of the preaching itself, including references to biblical judgment and hell. So you go out there and you say that there is a real place called hell, and you may go there if you don't believe in the right avenue to God, then now that's bad. Okay, we don't care about keeping people out of hell anymore. Instead, we just want to make everybody feel good during this life. Locals raised concerns and complained after a message was preached that contained the topic. The local council has now suggested that such messaging could have a detrimental effect on the community. Supporters of the church rightly raise their own concerns and argue that the move marks a shift into regulating speech and doctrine, something that the UK has been famous for the past couple of years. The church has appealed the notice, arguing it unlawfully targets protected religious expression and exceeds the scope of public order powers. Okay, if you're listening to this report today on YouTube and you hear a sound, we've got a problem. Something in the back is buzzing, but whatever it is, we'll figure it out later. Sorry if you hear any buzzing. From the AP, Pope Leo XIV makes historic apology for Vatican's role in legitimizing slavery. So he's following along with what we saw last week with the Church of Scotland. Now the Pope is doing this. Past popes have apologized for Christians' involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, but no pope has ever publicly acknowledged, much less apologized for, the role that past popes played in giving European sovereigns explicit authority to subjugate and enslave infidels. History's first U.S.-born pope, whose family history includes both enslaved people and slave owners, delivered the apology in his first encyclical. Well, why would he have any right to do that if some of his people were slaves when they came over here? The whole thing just makes absolutely no sense at all. He's apologizing for part of his heritage. And the other part of his heritage, he's just saying, well, they came over as slaves and that's just part of the, or maybe he's looking for, getting funds when they have reparations and not paying for it on the other side. I don't know what the guy is doing. Black American Catholics, activists, and scholars have long called for the Holy See to atone for its role in the colonial era trade in human beings, beyond generic apologies for the involvement of individual Christians. Once again, it was black people that sold black people into slavery. The white people bought them and took them all around the world. But so did the Arabs. Arabs took blacks all over the Arab world. This is a very bad policy, because slavery has been a part of the human condition since the beginning, and all people groups have had slaves. Picking out one group of people and saying they are exempt and we're going to apologize to them and nobody else is completely worthless. It is ridiculous. It is impossible to not feel deep sorrow when contemplating the immense suffering and humiliation endured by so many, in stark contrast to their immeasurable dignity as persons infinitely loved by the Lord, Leo wrote. For this, in the name of the church, I sincerely ask for pardon. Well, now he's asked for pardon, and they're going to say, okay, well, if you feel that way, then pay up, right? And it's going to be one group of people and not anybody else, and it's a totally biased thing that is going on in the world. It is inappropriate. It would have been inappropriate if they chose the Chinese. It would have been inappropriate if they chose the Arabs. It would have been inappropriate if any people group was singled out above the rest. But for some reason, we've got this in our head that we have to do this, and it is inappropriate. Times of Israel. Pope criticizes Trump administration over outdated idea of a just war. Leo XIV uses his first encyclical to push anti-war message that has angered Washington, warning against falling into a violent culture of power. From NBC. Pope Leo warns AI is fueling conflict, urges the world to slow advances. Wall Street Journal. Pope Leo compares AI threat to biblical Tower of Babel. Okay, so he's got all these ideas about AI, and I will agree with the last one. We had, in Genesis 11, all the countries of the world, all the peoples of the world had what? One language, one lip and one tongue, it says. Okay, so that was the case. And now I just was sitting on here greeting people from all over the world on the live stream before we got started. And I was able to copy into Japanese, Czech, Tagalog, what were some, Spanish, I can't remember. Anyway, I was just giving them a greeting in their own language. So that is true. Everything that was is being reinstalled. We're throwing God out of the mix and we're going back into that. And you'll see it's like a chiasm in history of what's going on. But at the same time, it's not going to stop because he's whining about it. What you want to do is see how the Bible shows that it is happening, and we can feel vindicated in the power of Scripture and the omniscience of God to know these things. That's why we have prophecy. That's why we adore the Creator that shows us that He knows in advance what's coming. But to whine about it means that He doesn't know Scripture, or He is unwilling to properly handle Scripture in order to tell what's coming. Okay? And that's a problem, because His job is to tell people what is coming. Because that's what the Bible does, and you think He would pick it up and He'd say, I want to tell people what God said in His Word. This is a problem. Got some news from the Mideast and Africa today. Zero hedge. Arab states voice outrage over a new illegal embassy opening in Jerusalem. It just tickles me what Israel has done. It tickles me. 15 Arab and Islamic countries condemned the decision of the breakaway region of Somaliland to open an embassy in occupied Jerusalem. Occupied Jerusalem. The foreign ministers of Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Jordan, Turkey, Pakistan, Indonesia, Djibouti, Somalia, Palestine, which isn't a country, by the way, Oman, Sudan, Yemen, Lebanon, and Mauritania denounced the move in a joint statement. The countries condemned in the strongest terms the illegal and unacceptable step taken by the so-called Somaliland region in opening a purported embassy in occupied Jerusalem. Occupied Jerusalem. The countries issued the statement after Israeli President Herzog welcomed Somaliland's first ever ambassador to Israel at the president's residence in occupied Jerusalem. 7 countries have opened embassies in Jerusalem since the U.S. under President Trump recognized the city as Israel's capital in 2017. Best move ever. The 15 countries rejected any unilateral measure to entrench an illegal reality in occupied Jerusalem or conferring legitimacy on any entities or arrangements that contravene international law and relevant UN resolutions. So they're basically saying that Israel has no right to recognize any country unless the UN has first. But all of them can do it, and they will do it if they want, but not Israel. The statement reaffirmed the fact that East Jerusalem has been occupied Palestinian territory since 1967 and said any measures seeking to alter its legal or historical status are null and void. Unless you're in Israel and they say it's not, null and void. The foreign ministers also expressed full support for the unity, sovereignty, and territorial integrity of Somalia, rejecting any unilateral actions that undermine Somali sovereignty. So, Israel was brilliant in what they did. It's going to cause a lot of trouble. These people are already aligning with Israel. They just had to put this out to make it sound like they care. But Israel was just brilliant in recognizing Somaliland. I doubt if many other countries are going to follow suit. Maybe none ever will until after the tribulation period or something. But it was a brilliant move on their part, and I fully support them in what they did. From World Israel News, U.S. probe of embattled UNRWA, the U.S. probe of the embattled UNRWA expands to 1,500 staffers suspected of Hamas ties. The federal investigation into staff at the UNRWA. You think the UN would have policed this years and years ago. Terrorists in the UN encompass at least 1,500 UNRWA-linked individuals suspected of terror ties. This unprecedented dragnet exposes an aid group brimming with Hamas operatives and is generating momentum in Congress and the Trump administration for harsher sanctions on the embattled aid group, according to congressional staffers briefed on the matter. The punitive measures up for consideration include stripping the UNRWA of its diplomatic immunity, good under U.S. law, which would open it up to legal action from terror victims. They can now sue, if they pass this, the UN, and fully designating the aid organization as a foreign terrorist organization, according to 3 Trump admin officials and other sources tracking the matter in Congress. The U.S. Agency for International Development, IG's office, a law enforcement agency separate from the largely defunct U.S. aid, has spent months of independently unearthing evidence that multiple UNRWA employees participated in Hamas's October 7 terror attack. We already knew that, but they are confirming this at the highest levels of the U.S. government. If UNRWA was not a UN organization, it would undeniably be facing terrorist sanctions based on what USAID IG has uncovered. That ongoing USAID IG investigation would logically lead to labeling the UNRWA as a foreign terrorist organization, which is exactly what needs to happen because it is a foreign terrorist organization. From the Gateway Pundit, Belgian remigration activist convicted of hate speech over factual lecture on migration. U.S. states slams the ruling. Okay, this guy gave a briefing on why we need to reintegrate these people into their own countries and why they're not coming okay in our area, right? And he gave facts, figures, and he is convicted of hate speech. That's what Biden was trying to do to us for the past 4 years, and that is what is happening right now in Belgium. A controversial court ruling in Belgium is igniting outrage across Europe after nationalist activist Dries van Langenhove was convicted for delivering a lecture that cited crime statistics and criticized the impact of mass immigration, raising fresh concerns about the future of free speech on the continent. The 33-year-old former member of parliament was found guilty by a Leuven court of incitement to hatred and dissemination of ideas. So you can't disseminate ideas anymore, following a speech at KU Leuven in early 2024. Critics say the ruling sends a chilling message, and I'm shaking right now. It's kind of cold in here. Even fact-based arguments can now be criminalized if they challenge the prevailing narrative. Van Langenhove was fined €4,000, adding to a growing list of legal penalties he has faced in recent years. He had previously been sentenced over content posted by others in a private chat. And outcome, his supporters say, underscores a broader crackdown on dissent. So, this is what's going on over there. This is what Biden tried to do to us. This started with Obama. Probably not with Clinton, even though the Clintons were not really great people. They're not great people. But Obama really wanted to get control of this country in a communist way. And then it was certainly expanded on greatly under brain-dead Biden because he had a whole group of Obama people in his White House that were doing things he wasn't even aware of. He just allowed it because he got his figurehead appointment in the presidency, even though he didn't know he was in the presidency. And they ruined this country for 4 years. And yes, the election was stolen, and I do believe that it is going to come out. I read a great article on that yesterday. I think it's still probably on the cgreport.com, so you can go there and check that out. There's no doubt that the election was stolen in 2020, and there may or may not be people going to prison, but I would hope that they would get this information out really, really quickly, because if they do, it may change we just had 4 senators, again, not allow the SAVE Act to come up for a vote. Yes. Okay, so they need to be kicked out. But in the meantime, if they get that information out that we had an election stolen and it is verifiable and it is out there, I bet you that they will no longer stand against the SAVE Act because they will say it's obvious and we are working against whatever cause we think we are upholding by not passing this. But we'll see. I would like to see that happen. Anyway, Zero Hedge. Leftist party wants voting rights for all foreigners who've lived in Germany for 5 years. Of course they do, because the AfD is taking off. They're going to take over Germany, and they are going to have a conservative government unless they get something like this in there, which is what the Biden administration was trying to do by getting billions of people into America and just letting them vote and steal elections. Okay? So we have a president that's getting rid of that right now, but in Germany, they want to make these people, if they've been in Germany for 5 years or not, it doesn't matter if they've stabbed people or whatever they've done, let them vote. And so that's the way that they will squash the AfD's power, and Germany will continue to decline into the abyss of history. From Mongolia, CBS, Minneapolis restaurateur Billy Sushi is hosting 4 youth hockey players from Mongolia. This is the greatest news I think I've ever heard from Mongolia. The popular Minneapolis restaurateur was visiting his home country in Mongolia when he saw something that reminded him of his current home. Driving through this tiny mining town, I saw this old Soviet Union era hockey rink. So he's equating Minneapolis with Soviet era hockey. I'm seeing that, communist and communist. But anyway, so I go over and I saw there are a couple people hanging around. Sounds like people that are hanging around waiting to attack ICE agents, right? So he's got these parallels. I said, you guys play hockey? They do play hockey up there in Minneapolis, so we're seeing another parallel. And they said, yeah, we do. We play hockey. And I'm like, show me. That was the start. The players have been practicing and playing tournaments with the local pro hybrid development program. The players have been practicing twice a day. They even took third place at a tournament held at Minnetonka High School. So really good stuff coming out of Mongolia. I hope that they will take their knowledge of what it used to be like under communist Russia and tell the people in Minneapolis to stop going down that path. They're young, they may not know, and they may think it's a good idea because these things keep getting recycled around, but we'll see what happens with it. Daniel 12 Technology. MSN. This is the most important technology article I have ever read you. Ever. Chinese startup launches pet translator with 95% accuracy. Yes, a China-based startup has sparked massive online debate after launching an AI-powered pet collar that claims to translate dog barks and cat meows into full human sentences with an astonishing 95% accuracy. The product, developed by PettyChat, has quickly gone viral across social media platforms, leaving pet lovers both fascinated and skeptical. According to the company's post, the smart collar uses microphones, motion sensors, and AI models to analyze pet vocalizations, emotions, and body language. The system was reportedly trained on millions of pet voice print data samples to understand patterns in animal communication. What makes the gadget even more futuristic is its claim that it can also convert human speech into pet-friendly sounds, allowing pets to supposedly understand responses from their owners. The company says the device can detect emotions such as excitement, anxiety, sadness, hunger, and affection based on the animal's tone and movements. So you don't need to be licked by your dog anymore because it just tells you, I feel like licking you. It saves you all that grief, right? Muslims would like that because dogs are really unclean and they're not allowed to get their saliva on you. And right, okay, this is all. So this would help Muslims to feel better around dogs because they can talk to them without being licked by them. All right. Some experts and users argued that pets rely heavily on physical gestures and environmental cues rather than just sounds, making accurate interpretation far more complicated than the startup suggests. These are all just naysayers. They don't know true technology. Despite the doubts, the viral success of the product reflects the growing obsession with AI-powered gadgets and humanity's endless curiosity about understanding animals. Now, my wife is in the back room right now, and I bet you she can hear me saying this, and I will bet within a week I will have 8 dog collars all lined up, ready to be put on my dog so she can talk to them. Whether the device becomes a genuine breakthrough or simply another viral tech gimmick, it has already succeeded in grabbing the internet's attention. I'm riveted personally. I can't wait to see especially what my dog Pishnai has to say. He's a real son of a gun. So I want to know what he has to say. I got not stay on long. That's true. Pishnai comes from where what's the story? Elijah and Elisha are going over the Jordan. Elijah's going to get taken to heaven, and Elisha says, "I'd like a double portion of your spirit." It's Pishnaim in Hebrew, and we cut it off and made it short, so it kind of is fun. It means mouth. 2, in other words. So you have 2 mouths or double portion. And so Pishnai, the reason why I called him that is because our first dog, Miri, they were both in a thing at the projects. We go to the projects and help the poor people, and there was a Hispanic family that we've been ministering to for 21 years now. And when they were young, they're all grown up now. Last one just moved out last week, but they were young and they had this thing full of Chihuahua pets. And they said, "Uncle Charlie, would you buy one of our Chihuahuas?" And I saw the most beautiful dog I've ever seen in my life in there, Pishnai. Okay, he's a boy. And he would be the obvious choice to buy, right? But no, There was the runt of runts that I've ever seen in my life, and that was Mary. And I said, I want that dog. That's going to be the best dog ever. She is at the end of every prophecy update I've ever done. She's the last thing you'll see. She tells you what's on her mind during the week. And Mary is the best dog ever. She's a son of a gun, too. But what happened is they sold all the dogs. I got mine. And about a week later, I got a call. Uncle Charlie, would you buy one more dog? And I said, well, why? And they said, well, somebody returned one of them. They can't keep it. And so I got down there, and there was Pishnai, the most beautiful dog I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely gorgeous dog. And I said, I'll take him. So we called him Double Portion. He's the double mouth, okay? And he is a good boy, but he's a little bit, I'd like to know what's on his mind, so I'm going to have to buy one of these. I won't buy one for my big dog Boaz because he's just so dumb that it would just come out. No point. Anyway, it's a dangerous world, including the inevitable plagues noted in the book of Revelation. From the Gateway Pundit. In the Fukushima nuclear disaster area, this is bad news for Japan. I'm going to tell you, this is dangerous. The mutant super pig population is surging out of control. In 2011, the Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster was hit by a massive 9.0 earthquake and subsequent tsunami, causing one of the worst radioactive disasters in history. My son, he's back there right now, he was adopted from that area right there. He would have probably been gone with that tsunami, and here he is, living life in America. And he and his wife just went to Japan a couple weeks ago for the first time for him in many years and for her ever. So they took my wife over there because she needed to go for a reason. And did you guys have a good time in Japan?
Oh, yes.
Good job. Good. Around 164,000 people were forced to flee from their homes to escape the radiation zone. In the ghost towns located in the nuclear fallout zone, a mutant super pig population has surged out of control. Amid the chaos, domestic pigs escaped into abandoned farmland and began interbreeding with pigs, indigenous feral boars, creating a mutant pig population with an alarming genes. Researchers from Fukushima and Hirosaki universities discovered through DNA analysis that the hybrid progeny inherited the maternal domestic pig's rapid reproductive cycle, allowing populations to quickly multiply, unlike that of the boar. So they're just taking off in population. They glow at night. You think they'd be able to find them and shoot them, but they're scared, I think, because they glow at night. And like Godzilla, right? I was thinking, I'll bet you, because it's low-dose radiation, you could probably get them, eat them, and you could become nuclear yourself, and you would be just like Iron Man or Superman. Kryptonite wouldn't bother. So I think we should see if we can get super mutant pig meat brought over here, and we could have a big party and have super mutant pig power, okay? Zero Hedge. New York governor signs bills to preserve mandatory vaccines. They never learned a thing in New York. They're going to mandatory vaccines. They haven't learned anything. The Congress has definitively proven many of the problems with the vaccines, and yet she is going to sign this bill to make sure that their people are subjugated to government authority. Politico. Relief group says Trump cuts led to delayed detection of Ebola outbreak. Ebola is Trump's fault. Did you know that? There, now you do. Morality. Zero Hedge. House Democrats unanimously vote against Women's History Museum. Can you guess why? House Dems unanimously voted against legislation to build a new Women's History Museum on the National Mall. The reason was an amendment that limited the exhibits to biological women, to the exclusion of transgender figures, and so every one of them voted against it. Every one of them. Mail Online. Woke Seattle lawmaker calls for celebration of LGBTQIA plus AAPI community, but is quickly condemned for leaving out two letters. They can't even get their letters right anymore. This shows you how mentally defective these people are, how they have become so mentally depraved that there's nothing but goo in their heads anymore. Breitbart, Brendan Carr, FCC considers parental warnings for transgender content on children's shows. Good. The Post-Millennial, Seattle's LGBT Commission demands free housing for trans refugees, calls for socialist mayor to declare state of emergency over trans relocation crisis. They want to bring all the trans in the country over there and give them free housing. Good. Let them have it. Gateway Pundit. Senator John Kennedy reveals that California's Medicaid system will pay for exorcisms. Well, send all the Democrats there. They need them. Breitbart. 8th graders given class project to design a brothel. 8th graders.
Wow.
Hey, listen, they're getting engineering experience, okay?
Yeah.
Just the news. Kansas City argues it can force Christians to counsel gay married couples without violating the SCOTUS ruling. They can't let it go. Somebody says, I'm not going to take a photo of them. It gets to the Supreme Court and they say, they're right. You can't make them do this. And so they stop and they go and make a birthday cake. And then it has to go to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court says, no, they don't have to make you a birthday cake. And now we've got it with counseling. They just can't let it go. There's counselors all over for reject people like that. And instead, they take it all the way to the Supreme Court, they lose, and then they try another one. Mail Online. YMCA in Liberal City finally cracks down with new rules after trans woman exposed pre-op private. So it's not a woman at all. It's a guy in the female locker room. He's walking around embarrassing these poor women.
Yep.
And so they finally say, well, we're going to pay. YMCA shouldn't have allowed this at all. It used to be a Christian organization. Whatever they do, stay away, way, way from YMCA. Life News. Canada has euthanized almost 100,000 people. It's only been a couple years. Death on demand. The Post Millennial. Violent Portland suspect freed without bail allegedly smashes an officer's face with a softball-sized rock 1 day later.
Wow.
And they just keep letting these people out and letting them out. Other news. Gateway Pundit. Germany moves to control social media. Trusted news sources to be algorithmically boosted by law. Okay, this is what Biden was doing. And they came out and they said, you can't do this. This is against the law, right? Germany is doing it. Germany is moving toward what critics are calling a sweeping new form of state influence over online speech, after plans surfaced to force social media platforms to prioritize content from government-approved outlets, raising serious concerns about censorship, narrative control, and the future of free expression in Europe. Regulators are preparing a system that would require platforms such as X, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok to give preferential treatment to content from so-called reliable media, which means left-wing media, which is exactly what the government disinformation bureau, or whatever they called it under Biden, was trying to do. What makes the proposal especially controversial is not just the intent, but the mechanism. For the first time, state-linked authorities would directly shape the algorithms that determine what information citizens see, effectively inserting government priorities into the public square. At the center of the plan is the concept of public value media. In theory, these outlets that provide socially beneficial information, but in practice, critics argue they are media organizations vetted and approved by the same political system that they are meant to scrutinize. That distinction is crucial. The power to define what is reliable would rest with the regulatory bodies tied to the state, not with citizens, readers, or independent market forces. Once granted this status, approved outlets would receive algorithmic advantages. Their content would be pushed higher in feeds, made easier to discover, and given preferential visibility over competing voices. The proposal does not stop there. Individual articles and videos could also be labeled as public value, creating a two-tier system where some content is actively promoted while other viewpoints are quietly deprioritized. Platforms would then be required to adjust their recommendation systems accordingly. In some cases, regulators are even discussing quotas to guarantee exposure for approved content, effectively turning private platforms into vehicles for state-guided messaging. This is what the left media has been doing for 30, 40 years. They've been prioritizing one slant of the news, and the other news sources have been marginalized and dismissed by people like Google and other places that get the news out. Okay, and they found out that that is not legal. We didn't realize that wasn't legal. And so Breitbart has to be prioritized with the same priority as these others. Still hasn't happened. They still try to squelch these people. But Fox, they're kind of okay. Breitbart, you get the Western Journal and some of these kind of right-leaning. They have such a tough time of getting their message out. This would completely destroy even that. Completely. For many critics, this crosses a fundamental line. It transforms social media from an open marketplace of ideas into a managed information ecosystem shaped by political authorities. Supporters of the initiative claim it is necessary to combat disinformation and preserve democratic discourse. Does that make any sense at all? Combat disinformation that they don't like in order to maintain democratic discourse? That makes completely no sense. But that justification is precisely what alarms opponents. They argue that fighting disinformation has increasingly become a catch-all for rationale for restricting dissent and controlling narratives. This is not about removing illegal content. This is about deciding which legal speech deserves to be seen and which does not. Critics describe the system as a form of soft censorship. No, it is hard censorship. Instead of banning opposing views outright, it ensures they are drowned out by state-preferred content. You don't delete the message, you just make sure nobody sees it. Now remember, state-provided content, PBS. We don't need the government. We don't need their money. And what happened when we took away their money last week? We're not making it. We're not, because nobody wants it, because it's not truthful. Truth is what corresponds to reality. That's the definition of truth. If you ever want to know the definition, truth is what corresponds to reality. If it is real, then it is true. If it's not real, then it is not true. Okay? NPR was what we call fake news, and they can't make it without support. CNN is fake news, but there are people that are willing to fund CNN through advertising. NBC, CBS, fake news. But if you throw in government money, they can't make it without it. Okay, so there you go. Critics to soft censorship. I read that. You don't delete the message, you just make sure nobody sees it. The consequences for independent and alternative media could be severe. Outlets that challenge government policy or question mainstream narratives may find their reach quietly throttled without any formal accusation or legal recourse. Meanwhile, established media, many of them publicly funded or closely aligned with political institutions, stand to benefit. This is just what Google was doing for years and years, and they still do it, I'm sure, behind the scenes. Prioritizing things, hiding things. Major broadcasters like ARD and ZDF are already positioned to dominate under such a system. Zero Hedge, NATO 3.0. Report details fundamental restructuring of U.S. commitments. This came out about a week ago. I haven't seen anybody else report on it, and I have seen other reports that kind of haven't mentioned this, even though they're having this meeting soon. So we'll see if this actually happens, but it's a great article if it actually happens. The U.S. is moving forward with a fundamental restructuring of its commitments to European security, transitioning from the traditional burden-sharing strategy to that of burden shifting. Washington expects European allies to assume responsibility for the continent's entire conventional defense. In this new framework, the U.S. will primarily provide a nuclear deterrent rather than the broad military support it has historically guaranteed. This transition, which the report notes has blindsided European officials, involves drastic reductions in U.S. military assets previously committed to the NATO force model. Alexander Velez Green, an envoy to U.S. Secretary of Defense Hegseth, recently informed allies that Washington intends to cut its contribution of fighter jets by 1/3 and significantly reduce the number of strategic bombers, Navy destroyers, and aerial refueling aircraft. The report notes that the U.S. plans to stop providing submarines to the NATO pool entirely and expects Europeans to supply their own reconnaissance and armed drones. The primary driver for this withdrawal is the U.S. military's pivot towards the Asia-Pacific, though officials also cited the need for flexibility to commit assets to military campaigns in West Asia and the Western Hemisphere. Washington reportedly seeks to prepare for a potential two-front conflict, noting that U.S. intelligence identifies 2027 as the key date when China may be capable of launching an offensive against Taiwan. Given the possibility the U.S. no longer wishes to have its key assets tied up by fixed NATO commitments. The report highlights an intensely fast-paced transition, with the U.S. demanding that European allies present specific offers to fill these newly created military gaps by early June. That's right now, folks, early June, aiming to formalize the new model at the July summit in Ankara. This is what I was talking about. I've seen other articles on the Ankara summit, but I've seen nothing mentioning this. We'll see if it comes out. While NATO leadership officially portrays the move as a way to reduce over-dependence on the U.S., European diplomats find the requirements far more severe than anticipated, with European leaders reportedly stunned by the scale and speed of the requirements. In secret meetings, some representatives even interpreted the U.S. insistence on rapid compliance as an indirect threat toward those who fail to act quickly. In line with the new burden shifting, President Trump announced on 22 May that he would send an additional 5,000 troops to Poland, a move reportedly driven by his personal relationship with and endorsement of Polish President Karol Nawrocki, I guess. However, the decision has stirred confusion with the Pentagon as it contradicts earlier orders to reduce U.S. military presence in Europe, such as the planned withdrawal of 5,000 soldiers from Germany. Well, taking 5,000 out of Germany and putting 5,000 in Poland means it's the same number, right? They can't seem to figure that out. While he's doing that to punish Germany for their bad attitude towards us.
Well, the difference, though, is the ones in Germany are permanent for base.
That's right.
The ones in Poland are rotational.
Rotational.
So all the families and stuff out of Germany.
That's right. A lot more people are being taken out. What he's saying, I don't know if you heard him, but they're rotationally based in Poland, like they would be in Korea years ago. Now I think you can take your families there. But there are less people being in the economy and supporting the economy when you take out not just a service member, but their families and all of the other things that help boost their economy. Well, the heck with that. Let them suffer in their own economy. If they want to do what they're doing to their own people through, censorship, let them have their own party. Such as planned withdrawal. Okay, while Polish leadership welcomed the surge, U.S. defense officials and diplomats have criticized the shift as impulsive, noting that it creates a sense of strategic inconsistency just as the U.S. prepares to brief NATO allies on its future military footprint. We've been supporting them since World War II, and they've never paid the full amount that they should have. Why should we continue doing that? But if you go read the book of Daniel, you'll see that this is exactly what's coming. They have to now fund their own military. They have to form their own infrastructure for that. And that is what is coming, the beast that is coming in the future. Trump is just setting it up. The Bible's written. The book it's black and white. All we have to do is watch history unfold before our eyes, and Donald Trump is helping it happen. The post-millennial. Oregon, yes, I said Oregon, because most people get mad at me when I say Oregon, which that's what it says. It's O-N, Oregon. It doesn't say U-N. But anyway, Oregon could vote to ban killing animals even for food. A petition initiative in Oregon that supporters are seeking to have put on the November ballot would make it illegal to kill or injure animals in the state, a move that opponents say would effectively ban hunting and fishing in the state. The proposed initiative, called the People for the Elimination of Animal Cruelty Exemptions Act, makes it a criminal act of animal abuse in the first degree if the person intentionally, knowing, or recklessly causes the death of an animal. Okay, recklessly. You get into an accident in your car by running over Bambi, and you can now be charged for that in Oregon if this passes. I wish they had the same love for the unborn human being and the older one that they're killing in euthanasia than they would for animals. The initiative also includes a provision extending sexual abuse of animals to include artificial insemination on farm animals. So if you artificially inseminate to get better animals, which is what the Lord has allowed us to do, supporters of the measure have reached the number of necessary signatures. putting it one step closer to being on the November ballot. Industry groups have spoken out against the measure, with the Oregon Cattlemen's Association saying that the Peace Act would prohibit processing of animals in addition to restricting hunting and fishing under the guise of preventing animal cruelty, and remove the freedom of choice from every customer.
They're hypocrites because they're going to import all the food.
Of course they are. Of course they are. Total hypocrites. It's what Democrats always are. Zero head. Mosquito. You can't. No. You hit a mosquito and you are going to jail. You hear me? Zero Hedge. CEO saves his failing company by firing the entire HR department. He got rid of them. He said they were creating problems to justify their own existence. Exactly what Elon Musk did with Twitter. He fired them all, and it became productive again, and now he's making billions and billions of dollars off of X. This guy took the model, and he says, we're going to try it, and he's able to save his company. No HR department. Wall Street Journal. China eliminates tariffs on Africa to outmaneuver Trump. Ooh. Zero Hedge. The world is losing trust. Foreign investment in Germany plunges to the lowest level since 2009. Reuters. Australia, India, Japan, U.S. Quad to build a port, unveil pact on critical minerals. Mirror. Japan unveils fastest ever passenger jet, 2.5 times speedier than the Concorde. Wow. It's being developed. It's not made yet, but it is going to be so fast that you can go from Tokyo to the U.S. in about 2.5 hours. Wow. Sign me up. Yeah, me too, buddy, because I ain't doing those 30-hour flights ever again. I will never go back to my beloved Japan or Malaysia ever again unless I can go in 2.5 hours. Yes. Zero Hedge. Ukraine uses high-altitude balloons. This is absolutely brilliant. Brilliant. High-altitude balloons to extend suicide drone strike range. They send it up. It floats over Russia. It goes a couple hundred miles when that's all it could fly normally, and then it goes down and they can fly it a couple hundred more miles and blow up things they never could have done before. Brilliant technology. From AMG, Ron DeSantis strikes again. Toughest immigration law in America. Death penalty for child killers and rapists. Yes. Gateway Pundit. In the midst of Europe's rearmament frenzy, Britain is revealed to have, that can't be right, only have drones for 1 week of war? Not the UK. The sun never sets on their empire. Well, I guess it does now, doesn't it?
It has set.
It's gone. Okay, who said it? You're not going to get it, but it's still very good. Everyone acquainted with the subject will recognize it as a conspicuous failure concerning the light bulb. Everybody will recognize it as a conspicuous failure. No. Henry Morton, president of the Stevens Institute of Technology, speaking of Thomas Edison's light bulb. Epic failure. It will never make any progress. Ever. Okay, got a Lesric here for you. NATO isn't completely alone, but our help has been cut to the bone. They will have to get strong and do it for long, because Trump will have set a new tone. Okay, got a couple ironies and we are done. This is ironic. Ironic is when something happens that's unexpected and something else happens that's unexpected at the same time. Gateway Pundit. Unlicensed illegal alien driver causes an accident on the freeway right next to ICE arresting another illegal. Okay, now this one is so funny that I laughed. Jim will confess this. I laughed for probably 10 minutes over this. Breitbart. One-handed Florida woman is accused of holding a cell phone while driving.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Such is the world in which we live. So from Sarasota, Florida to Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. I'm Charlie Garrett, and that's your CG Prophecy Report for the week.